And I told my parents I wanted to learn to play. Didn't say I wanted piano lessons. I said I wanted to learn to play the sting on the piano. Okay. So instead of getting me a teacher that would teach me how to play the sting, I just want to learn that one song. They wasted 3 years of my life, and I could literally play Mary Had a Little Lamb and London Bridge. I was always in the impression, you get married once, you're married forever. I pretty much think I raised myself, and I think I raised my parents. I can see he's a better parent now for my half brother. Okay. Um, Much better than he was for me and Ben. I can tell you, he was a heck of a lot happier out of that house. I mean, I told you, literally from the first time I saw him after he moved out, like I said, the apartment complex a few blocks away, we got along so much better.
Before we start today's episode, I would just like to say a couple things about my dad's episode. He was, I thank him very much for coming on and sharing his perspective on what he went through. And this week, my brother is going to be on, and he wanted to share what it's like to be the child that, in his perspective, he needed to step up and fill a role of the other parent. And for all of those kids out there that need to fill that role or feel like they need to fill that role, he wanted to speak up for them and tell what that is like. He does tell some stories about our father, and it's just, this is his perspective, and just listen to it with that caveat.
Welcome to the Too Dad to Quit podcast.
The podcast where we highlight stories of dads on the other side of divorce.
To inspire and give strength to dads going through it.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Yoel.
Welcome back to the Too Dad to Quit podcast. You can find us on twodadtoquit.com, Too Dad to Quit on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube clips, Spotify, anywhere you listen to your podcast. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, share, and comment on the podcast. We want to share your story, so please reach out to us. You for sure have something that your story can help others that are going through a situation like you. This week, we are sitting down with my big brother, Eli. Eli is the oldest of 4 brothers and practically raised me when our parents separated and later divorced. Eli is an entrepreneur, an inventor, and a former BMX racing champ. So, bro, you're not our typical guest. You happen to be divorced. However, you don't have any children, but you really wanted to come on here and represent the kids in the family that when one of the parents leaves has to take over a lot of the responsibilities, and you really felt like we weren't representing that population, and so that's why you're here. So thank you for volunteering and pressuring us to get out of our little box and show another side of the story. I would not be here if it wasn't for you. You taught me the simple things like where to put the fork and the knife and how to order at a restaurant, as well as racing bikes, and I followed your footsteps. I remember stories, and you can tell me if it's true or not, but I also helped you out when you used to take me and my very interesting colored eyes to Wildwood, to the beach, to help you pick up girls.
All that I don't recall. Wait a minute, hold on a second. When I went to Wildwood, it was in 1987. How old were you then? 9?
So, 87. I don't know. Math isn't my thing. Yeah, probably 9.
Yeah, it would have been 9 because I was 8.
Not only that, I don't need anybody's help picking up girls, so that doesn't make sense.
Well, that's a story you told me once upon a time, and I definitely remember being there with you. That's for sure.
In Wildwood.
In Wildwood.
Are you thinking Seaside?
Nope. Wildwood.
I wish mom was alive, because the only time mom came to Wildwood was when I crashed my car and I needed help getting it home or something. So I have no recollection of that story. Now, however, we did go to the mall, okay, and that was in maybe 86 or so. And well, first of all, I took you there to meet some girl, which nothing happened with. And then the other time I remember kind of double dating with you was when I was dating Andrea. We were trying to set you up with your younger sister, and I think that was in Manhattan. So those are the only two times I remember that.
All right. If we're going to go into stories, I also remember you were living in Manhattan, and I was going to school in Manhattan in college. And
Yes, you were going to Yeshiva
By the way,
University.
I,
Yes.
I feel like we're on an episode of the Goldbergs. You know, Eli, we were talking about pop culture before. You ever see that show, The Goldbergs, about their family growing up in the 80s?
Oh, absolutely.
I kind of feel like I'm sitting in on one of these episodes, except it's live and I'm part of the show, except as an outsider. But anyways,
Yeah, but
Ben,
also we're going to go
carry
from
on.
we go from the 80s to the 2020s,
Well,
so we're not stuck in a little decade.
Yeah, we got plenty of time.
yeah, so I remember I was in college, and I asked you to come down and visit me one time, and you said, "Sorry, bro, I got a good spot. I'm not leaving for a week." Because of, I guess, alternate side parking, where basically if there were too many holidays in a row, you didn't have to move the car, and parking on the street in Manhattan was like a novelty. So that's one of those things that sticks out in my mind.
I don't. Yeah, but that story's not true either. Because if you recall, listen, Yoel. So when Ben was going to Yeshiva University, I was actually living in Kansas City. Then
Kansas City.
I decided, yeah, and then I used to throw the biggest New Year's Eve. Hold on, I used to throw the biggest New Year's Eve party in Manhattan on the aircraft carrier Intrepid. Then what happened is we decided to expand. So I had a partner in Kansas City.
Wait, are you sure you're Ben's
office.
brother, by the way? I really want to verify that. Like, are we 100% positive? Has there been like a maternity test to prove this?
How's this? We have the same voice. And if I didn't have this little scratch and I was a little bit younger, we looked the same. So
You
yes,
do look alike. You do look alike. What's the age difference?
12 years.
12 years. Anyway, carry on. Yes, we're talking about the partying. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, Ben. So I was living in Kansas City. Blah blah blah. Then things didn't work out in Kansas City, so I was going to move back to Manhattan. I had a rent-controlled apartment on the Upper East Side, but it was rented out, so I needed a place to stay for a couple of weeks. So I stayed with you at Yeshiva University, if you don't recall.
That is true as well.
Okay.
But then you eventually got back in the apartment, and there was this one time, I don't know, that was the reason you weren't coming to see me, which is fine, and I get it, priorities. But it was one of those Manhattan moments that like stuck in my mind, I guess.
All right, I have no recollection, but
anyway, let's
I'm getting old.
Let's back all the way up before.
Aren't we all?
Let's back it all the way up before you forget anything else. So I guess for 12 years of your life, it was just you and our other brother. I guess 10 years, because he's 2 years younger.
Yeah. Phil, and you should point to the picture it looks like your left. Point to Phil. I can see it on the wall. You can't turn your head around?
I'm working on it.
No.
He's over there.
There we go.
There you go.
Yes, that is our brother Phil, who passed away. And I guess at some point, I don't know, I never knew them married, our parents, but that I recall.
That's a good thing.
So you, I guess you were aware of most of what was going on there?
Well, I don't know if Fred, who I believe you guys spoke with yesterday, told you the story, but you were 6 months old. You remember the living room? We had like a purple couch or purple carpeting, I forget. So they bring us in, me, Phil, and well, you were there, but you were 6 months old. You probably didn't do anything. And they go, we're gonna get separated. Phil starts crying hysterically, and I go, "It's about time."
Wow. You said that out loud. You didn't just think it. You said it verbally.
Oh no, I said it out loud.
And just for the timeline again, I'm trying to follow the math. You were how old at that point? You said you were 12 years old, right?
I was 12. 12,
right.
Yes.
Wow. So that means you knew that there, even at such a young age, you knew that there were problems, even as a young child. Like, how did that make you feel? Do you remember your sort of how it was for you growing up in that environment?
Well, actually, it's funny. So when I went to Hebrew day school from like nursery school till fifth grade, and like every kid there except for my parents were divorced. So to me, it was like, hmm, that's interesting. Um, but it didn't, you know, I wasn't like hoping they would get divorced or anything. But I was just like, well, I got the cool family, you know, even though, you know, they didn't get along much. And then, like for instance, so much of the stuff I know is self-taught. For instance, on the weekends, you know, okay, so here, for an example, so a normal day in my life, you know, since I can remember is, you know, my dad would go to work from, you know, 7 in the morning, come home 6 at night, you know, we'd eat dinner, he'd watch TV, then maybe go to bed or something. Um, but then, you know, so you're hoping for like, I don't know if you're hoping, but you know, you're looking forward to the weekends when maybe you could hang out with the family. I'm not saying I wanted to or not. I'm just saying you're kind of looking forward to it. But both mom and dad would sleep all day. So literally Saturday mornings, I'm not religious, so sorry I was watching TV. But that's where I learned all this stuff that I didn't learn before. And I mean more than Sesame Street, like watching Abbott and Costello and old movies and forming my own opinions because I was like on my own, you know. And I'm talking pretty young. I mean, my younger brother Phil is probably, you know, not even doing that with me, and he was only 2 years younger. So hope that answers some of your question, but no, it wasn't like there were these crazy problems. I mean, of course, you know, the problem with family is, and if you want to talk about pop culture, is everybody thinks the perfect family is the Brady Bunch, but that doesn't exist. You know, if you go to somebody's house for dinner because they invited you and you bring your families, everybody's on their best behavior. That's
Right.
not the way they behave the second the door is closed, you know, whether it's the parents, the children, or the interaction. So,
Yeah, it's very true. I remember actually hearing a talk. It was actually a rabbi who said it. Um, his grandfather was a very famous rabbi anyway in Jerusalem, but he was talking about, you know, in the, you know, for our audience that, you know, maybe isn't Jewish or not religious, there's the Sabbath, which is on Friday nights and Saturdays. So Friday night there's a big family meal. And I remember him saying that he remembers his ideal, like he's going to get married, he's going to raise children, and everyone's going to sit around the table and sing, and everyone's going to be all dressed nicely. And then he said a few years into his marriage and a few kids later, reality set in where this one's screaming, his wife's angry at him because he didn't take out the trash before the meal started. And why aren't you dealing with that kid? And this one, you know, and all sorts of crazy, you know, craziness going on. So I totally hear what you're saying. Like it's true. It's not real life for sure. And you know, but just to get back to what you were saying, so you're saying from your perspective, for you growing up, most of your friends were from divorced families, because
yes.
that's so
And this was
interesting.
early on when I went to Hebrew day school. So, and
Wow.
I went to the Orthodox Hebrew day school. So it wasn't like, you know, public school, which I went to later, but yeah.
Right. Wow. Ben, was that your
And I was
experience
kind
too?
of,
I
Like
mean,
not when you were
there's a lot
six
of
months.
years difference in there.
Yeah, I know. But I'm saying for you, like for you growing up, you know, did you find, because for me, it was a rarity for the divorced families were very rare growing up for me, maybe one or two families. And all the kids kind of like pointed at the guy and they're like, oh, you know, he's divorced. His parents are divorced. You know, now I find it's much more common, unfortunately, but
Honestly, for me, I don't even if I took notice of it. I just, I don't know. To me, I was more like I never knew them married, so they didn't really get divorced. But I was like more like an only child because my oldest brother, they 10 and 12 years older than me, so it was really just me and my mom. So I didn't really, I don't know. I was just, it wasn't part of my identity, so to speak. It was
yeah,
more,
Ben, first of all, oh, sorry. I
yeah.
was just saying, Ben, it was two things. Number one, is there a difference between when you went to public school and then, you know, religious school? Okay, that's number one. Number two, it wasn't you and your mom until I went to college. So you had a good, what, 6 years with me or something?
Yeah, but I was
Wait, I was
little.
12. Yeah, but those were the some very important parts of growing
I,
up in life.
yeah, I don't remember much of those years.
And at the same time, by the way, I was taking care of mom because she was a mess.
mm.
Right.
In what way were you taking care of her? Like
Oh my, everything.
emotionally, physically, like
Uh, no, that came later in life. We can get to when we get to the 2020s. No, literally, I'd be paying the bills. I'd be going to the grocery store. I've been taking care of Ben. I mean, mom was like severely depressed. So,
wow.
and she
Always
wasn't working at that
or
point.
since the divorce, always or since the divorce with your father?
Oh, well, especially since the divorce. I would say before that, on and off ish, you know. For instance, when I went to that Hebrew day school, we had a teacher, Maura Miriam, and I guess she got pregnant or something and had to leave. And she was a second grade teacher. I was in first grade. And I overhear the teachers talking, oh, we got to find a second. Okay. Remember, I'm in first grade at this point. So I raised my hand. I go, my mom's a teacher. And I got her a job there because of that.
No way. Wow.
Yeah. Of course, she taught the English part of the second grade. But yes, she was actually my second grade teacher.
Hmm.
How was that?
It was great because Ben in the den, she had all the teachers' books, and I'd look up the answers before the test.
Did you she used to tell me she had a stare when she was a teacher that she could just look at a kid and they would like change their behavior. Did you experience that? Not for you, but the other kids. I assume it didn't affect you.
Oh, I have no idea what you're talking about. How's that? So I have no idea. And
All
by the
right.
way, I mean, she worked there for a few years, so it could have been in a class that wasn't mine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My class was very small, so could have been more than 8 or 9 people, and I don't know who in that class she could have affected. I still know most of their names, so I don't know.
It could have been also when she was teaching. Didn't she teach in California also?
Yeah, she did.
So maybe it was there.
Yeah, could be before my time.
Yeah.
So what was that? So Eli, what was that like? Kind of carrying that burden on your shoulders at such a young age.
I didn't think it was a burden. As a matter of fact, my mom told me recently, before she passed away, so it lasts like 3 4 years, but she said she knew I was smarter than she was when I was 3 years old.
Hmm.
So, and I'm very aware, self-taught, IQ's high, whatever, blah blah blah. But I'm also street smart. But it's also like I don't know. It just felt like a normal family responsibility. I mean, I'm going to jump forward 40 years for a second, but when my mother's husband, my stepfather, passed away, this was about 10, 11 years ago. I was living in Atlanta and I dropped everything and I moved out here to be with her uh, just so she wouldn't, get depressed again. You know what I mean? Like she was
Hmm.
before she married my stepfather. So, it's just a responsibility. And then he passed away, and then a couple of years later, she had a stroke. And thank God that day I happened to be home. I was supposed to be at my girlfriend's house, and she's home, and she all of a sudden she falls on the floor, and I was out in the back patio smoking as I usually do. And I run in, and she's like, she's funny. She goes, "Help! I've fallen. I can't get up." So I pick her up, and she says something, and she starts slurring her words. So I
Wow.
run to the bathroom and get her a 325 aspirin, which is what you're supposed to do if someone has a stroke or a heart attack. And like I said, thank God. And so I said, we're going to the hospital. She goes, I don't want to go. I'm fine. Like that.
Wow.
We literally called Ben in Israel. I go, Ben, can you tell mom she needs to go to the hospital? And Ben talked to her and said she had to go. And I go, well, you're either going now or I'm calling an ambulance. So then I took her there. But it's my mother. I always take care of my mother.
Hmm.
And I did for years after this.
Hmm.
So, like I said, no, I didn't feel any immense burden at all. It wasn't. It's just a change. Look, my mom was always there for me. Like if my father said no, she said yes. If I ever did anything, she supported me. There's only one time she got mad at me, as far as I know, in my whole life. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I felt no burden at all.
And you got along
By
well
the way,
with. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say that on the other side of the coin is so my father moved out like pretty much immediately after that conversation, and he moved to some apartments about 4 blocks away. And after that, my dad and I started getting along a little better. Uh, just as a note, So apparently, he definitely became a different person after the divorce. But I just want to throw those two sides in there real quick because I know we're still back in like 1980 something. So go ahead.
No, but in what way did he become a different person? You mean like a different dad or a different person, and how?
Both. Um, how? Well, we began dating. He seemed happier because obviously it must have been with someone he got along better with my mother.
Right. Where was he? By the way,
He'd
where
say,
was he? Because nowadays you've got the dating apps and everything like that. But back then, I don't know if you know this. Maybe it'd be a better question for him. But do you know, like, where was he meeting all these women? Because it sounds like there
hold
hasn't
on.
been any shortage for him
No, I can tell you at work,
at work. Interesting.
and not. He kind of ran two businesses at the time, but he did some work down in don't quote me, North or South Carolina, and that's where he had met the first girlfriend. That I don't know, it didn't last that many years. She did make a really good potato soup though. That's the only thing I liked better. Um, but then he met his next girlfriend, who's his current wife, and they've been married like forever. Also at work. So yeah.
Oh, so he wasn't like in and out of relationships. He had like just a couple of very long-term relationships, including his current wife, essentially.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if the first girl son off my wife. I don't think it was my mother was that long. I think it was like maybe a year or two. I don't quote me on that one, but
Right.
and the next one was like forever.
Right. Got it. Well, and what about your mom? I'm kind of jumping around, but your mom, you said she was depressed, but she ended up remarrying. So did she sort of get? It sounds so juvenile, but get better? Like, did she sort of, was she less depressed, or like how was she able to get into a relationship? If she was, so depressed, or was that something that kind of passed with time, or she worked on that?
Well, you said you like hearing stories.
Oh
So
yeah.
first of all, my father's first cousin, her name was Rosie. She had passed away, and about a year later, he was talking to my mother because my mom, the whole family, knew each other. It was my father's first cousin, whatever. And I don't know, Ben, what he proposed in like 3 days or something.
Something
So
like that.
it wasn't like, yeah,
Wow.
it wasn't like she was out there looking for anybody or anything. But they just started talking, and they literally got married like in 3 days. We're married for way longer than my mom and dad. And yeah, that snapped her out of the depression like that. He
But
took care of her.
she did a lot of work before that. Like she had I guess called Epstein-Barr virus, or so she was always, which I don't know, like some people call it the sleeping sickness. But she searched and searched and went to tons of doctors, finally found some doctor that was very alternative. He was a chiropractor, but also like doing homeopathic stuff, and he had very weird machines, and he would test your hair and then give you I guess natural medicine to deal based on what he found on your hair. So she went to
Don't
him
forget,
for like,
don't forget the cult she was addicted to.
yeah, but I don't think that helps. I don't think that helps.
Well, no, but
And
what it did was it got her a lot of fake friends, and she got a house to do things. But it wasn't. I mean, I believe Yoel's question is kind of about her dating or not, or maybe not. Maybe they're
well,
both
I'll
intertwined.
get
But
there. I'll get there. But
okay,
this was like a 5-6+ year process for her, where she like, I was always pushing her to get into the natural medicine and get into, do something. Like my motto is, or my mother raised me. I don't know if this is same for you, E, but she said there's no such thing as trying, only doing. Which is how I try to live, but she didn't live that way. She did a whole lot of learning, a whole lot of reading, a whole lot of going to seminars, these motivational speakers and course after course after course, but never took the next step to do action out of it.
Well, listen, she was a follower. Okay. She could never really make any decisions herself. And you know that. So that's why she was good with a cult. That's why she was good with going, let's say, temple. That's why she was good with like listening to like, for instance, I would tell her something, right? And she'd like, wouldn't do anything or believe me. But then if she hears it from a friend or then reads it on the news, she'd do it right away.
Wow.
So
I've heard something like that before. There are a lot of people like that. It's amazing, right? You could say something, but they don't listen. But yeah,
but at the same time, she was our biggest fans and let us, you can do anything you want. I support you. Do whatever you need. Like, I wanted to be an actor, so she sent me to acting camp. I wanted to play all the sports. She got me into those sports. The only thing she wouldn't.
You went to acting camp, Ben?
Yeah, I didn't hear this either. What are you talking about? You want to be an actor?
You went to acting camp? You son of a bitch. I can't. I've got a movie poster on my wall, and this Yoko goes to acting camp. Unbelievable. For all those listening, Ben is cracking a smile, which for me I'm very happy about, by the way. So if you're not watching, Ben has like a bit of a smile on his lips to that one. My raison d'etre on this podcast, by the way, the whole reason I joined Eli when Ben asked me is to try and get him to laugh at one of my jokes. And so far, about how many episodes has it been?
36.
Ben, how many? 36. I think I've gotten you to laugh
37 at this point.
2 or 3 jokes out of the 36 episodes. But anyway, tell us about this acting class. That's
yes, please.
Not to digress on my mother's dating life. She did go to singles events and things during that time also. So she was getting out. Yeah. I don't know anything beyond that, but I do know she was.
You know Charles?
Yeah.
You know Charles?
I do, but I don't think they did.
That dating thing.
Charles and
I don't think they did it.
They went on a date once or twice, but then they became friends. And by the way, after Rich died, she went on one date. I don't know if you know about that.
She did with my my friend's grandfather.
That's who that was? Oh.
Yeah.
For instance, me and my wife, we're both extremely strong people. Like what I like is smart, hot, and chemistry, and it has to be all three.
Right.
Okay. I'm not just pretty or whatever. It's got to be all three.
Nice.
So anyway, I always wanted to be an actor.
Back to Ben.
Since when, Ben? Since what age?
Yeah, since when?
Since I was little. I don't know, 5 or 6. I don't know. Mom always said.
I did know this.
Mom always said. Yeah, but before that. Yeah. But when Mom said when I was little, and all your friends would come over, I would be there talking to everybody, performing, etc. But anyway, I did like to be the center of attention. So there was in the local rec, they had in the summer they had an acting thing. They put on shows. So basically, it was July and August, and at the end of each month, we did a weekend show, Friday, Saturday, Sunday shows. We had a week of rehearsal before that with full dress, and people would come.
I don't remember going to any. I've never even heard you went to one.
People would come and buy tickets, and I was yeah.
By the way, Eli, Eli, Ben gets mistaken for a very famous actor all the time, by the way. Can you guess which one? Ben loves this.
Nope.
James Franco. He's been mistaken.
Well, that's not a good thing.
Well, appearance-wise, I'm not talking about anything else. And you know who you kind of look like, by the way? I'm just thinking now because I had to find somebody. Vin Diesel. What do you say?
It was bald.
Well, you're wearing but you got the cap. Well, I didn't know that. You got the cap and the sunglasses. All right. Well, with the cap on, maybe more, but
now you have to describe what he looks like for all the listeners who are not looking.
Oh, everyone knows what Vin Diesel looks like. Come on. Fast and the Furious. There's like 30 Fast and Furiouses, I think. So.
Anyway. But we should also describe what I looked like when I was younger. And I still look good, but I just look even better.
Well, you're going to send Ben a snapshot that he's going to put up on the video, right?
Ben, I sent it to you the other day. Do you have it?
I have all the pictures, not to worry.
No, the specific one that I said Ben, I want you to put this on the back of your wall. And it's a
Yes,
recent picture.
I do have that one.
Yeah. That's the one to throw up there.
All right. I want to sidetrack a tiny bit. You just have like a weird history. I like to tell people that wherever you go, don't be where Eli used to be.
Mm-hmm.
When I was I must have been 12 or 13, maybe even younger. I was away for the weekend, and I heard that the truck bombing in the World Trade Center happened, and that was where you were working or supposed to be working. And it was before cell phones, before any of that, and I was pretty much freaking out until I could get a hold of mom. But that was one experience. Then you were.
What about the LA riots?
I'll get there. And then
you're going out of order.
I don't know the order time wise. I didn't know that was before. The riots were before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So during the LA riots, you were actually living in Santa Monica. You were in your apartment, just basically sitting there holding protection in case anybody opened that door. And that was right outside your door. Then there was.
What kind of protection are we talking about? Just for clarity.
Hold on, back up. Well, first of all, I'm not going to say. First of all, though, Ben, what you're missing is I was working for Pitney Bowes, and my territory was right in the middle of like Watson, where the riots were. Okay, I had quit my job the day before because they insisted on making me go back to the office for absolutely no reason. I was number one in sales and leases, and I didn't want to spend 2 hours in traffic every day. I literally quit the day before. I would have been.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
If I had not quit. Yeah,
that's crazy. Wow,
I missed that part of the story. Yeah,
wow.
and then so then there was the truck bombing where you were also at Pitney Bowes again.
No. That was Karen Fitzgerald.
No, but that was the second trade center. That was the airplanes.
No, it was both.
Oh, it was both. Okay. So
yes, I was working out of the office the day of the truck bombing, and I had quit before the other bombing because they kind of forgot to give me my $300,000 they owed me, so I quit.
Oh man!
And for all those that don't know, 90-something% of Cantor Fitzgerald employees were killed during 9/11.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I worked on the 105th floor of the World Trade Center.
Wow. Are you a spiritual person, Eli? Like, do you believe in anything like, destiny and sort of like, what's your take? Do you have any take on that at all, or happenstance? Like, how do you view it?
Well, how's this? I believe in karma. I don't think it's a real thing, but I think it does have kind of effects, if you know what I mean.
And that was that.
Person,
yeah,
I'm gonna say if you're a good person, generally good things will happen. If you help people, although it's not like I help everybody. Sometimes it's better to stay out of stuff, but no, I think karma's a bee, and it happens. I mean, what you don't know about my job at Cantor Fitzgerald was I was a corporate spy in the beginning, and literally 98% of the company was against me. Okay, but my job was to report to the CEO and report what was going on. So and it actually gave me an ulcer at one point, and I was young. And yeah, I was not happy with most of the people who worked there. So
wow.
And I got lucky. So there you go.
Yeah, and that wasn't the last one. And then the recent shooting in Poway, in the synagogue. So that was my mother's synagogue, and also Eli would have been there with her, but they moved recently, like a year before.
No, that's not what happened.
Okay.
Well, we did move, but that's not what happened. She still wanted to go there, and I'm like, Mom, I don't think this is a good time to go anywhere near a temple. I don't know why. It was just talk about karma or intuition, but I'm like, this is not a good time to be going to temple. And I don't know why. I don't know if there was other shootings beforehand or something, but I was like, it was a bad time. And then literally, boom, we would have been there, except I convinced her not to go.
Wow.
And the
Which
woman who
is
actually got killed was a friend of hers.
Wow.
which is why I say just don't be where he was, because you never know. You can be with him, apparently, but not
Yeah,
where
he
he
could be with
was.
me, but right, right.
Can we talk about Phil, or is that
Yeah,
not?
sure.
Well, yes, I would love to. Yeah, got a point again.
No, because Ben mentioned that he, I mean, I know the story, but for our audience, because Ben, you mentioned that he passed away. Obviously, he passed away young. Can you speak to that, Eli? Also, because you were wearing this sort of second hat. You weren't just a child, you were also kind of running your mom's household. Is that, or was it already past then? I don't know the timeline.
No, it was past then.
Oh, okay.
It was past then. He after my folks. Okay, so ready. So my parents got separated again when I was 12. Ben was 6 months old. Okay, ready? They didn't get officially divorced, ready, till 5 years later. Okay.
Right.
Now, wait. The interesting part is, so they get divorced. Hold on. So we have to go to court. And the judge literally says, because my father was living in Connecticut and my mom wanted to move to California. And the judge had asked, if you guys all moved to California, which me and my brothers did, you know, uh, would that be good or whatever? And then he asked, what would you do if I don't allow it? And my brother said he moved in with my father. Well, of course, the moron judge didn't allow it. So he moved in with my father. But let me just back up a minute. So one of the most interesting things is, so the day they got divorced was my day of graduating high school, and I almost missed my graduation.
Wow.
Like what? None of my parents could say, "Oh, we should reschedule the court date. He's graduating high school." I'm just saying.
Hmm. Did you ever raise that? Like, did you ever tell your mom and dad that you felt that way, or you kind of just buried it?
Say that. I don't keep my mouth shut about anything. Well, unless I'm supposed to.
So you did say that. What did they say anything to you or about that? Did any of them say anything about that?
Not really. And I brought it up. You know, I brought it up for years. No,
Hmm.
they're just like, well, that was a date. Blah blah blah. But anyway, back to my brother Phil.
Hmm.
Because this is what I was saying. So anyway, the reason of that story was because he was living in Connecticut at the time. He had went to University of Connecticut for like a year, and like Benny decided to not continue with education, which, by the way, I think is a great idea. I'm not a big believer in college. Not even a big believer in high school. Anyway, even though I did graduate college, I got to go back in time. I wouldn't have went to college. Anyway,
we should
because I only had
introduce
three
Eli to
points.
Brad, our other guest, Brad. But anyway, carry on. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, anyway, after UConn, he got a really good job as like a car salesman, and I think I ended up being like a assistant manager. I mean, he was making good money, whatever, etc. And then at one point, we go down to Miami for, it was either spring break or my grandparents had a 60th wedding anniversary, and they took the whole family down to Disney World. So we might have went to Miami afterward. I'm not sure. But anyway, so in Miami, you could rent a motorcycle and drive it on the beach. Like 15 miles an hour or something. And I knew how to ride, and Phil wanted to learn, so I taught him how to ride in the beach. Blah blah blah. Then once he gets back to Connecticut, I don't know how many months or a year later, he buys a motorcycle. And when we were riding there, like the ones, like the motocross ones, you sit on, you're up high. He buys a pocket rocket. And by the way, Phil used to have, or still had,
Epilepsy.
Ben, what's that called?
Epilepsy.
Epilepsy. Yeah. As a matter of fact, he couldn't drive till he was like 19, because until the diram he was taking worked, they wouldn't allow him to get a driver's license.
Hmm.
Anyway, so he first got the motorcycle. I joked with him. I said, "Hey, can I buy life insurance for you? On you?" He goes, "Sure." And I was just joking. Anyway, a year or two later or something, he died in a motorcycle accident, and we don't know. He was with a whole group. We don't know why. We don't know if he had an epileptic seizure or not. But anyway, so I don't know. It's maybe my fault because I taught him how to ride one, but he asked. He died doing what he loved doing. He even got a free helicopter ride before he actually passed away after the accident. I'm sure he might have enjoyed it for a couple seconds. I don't know, but anyway, what other questions you have about my brother?
Well,
Well,
Phil.
yeah, go ahead, Ben.
I just have one more story, I guess. You taught me how to ski, or took me to ski,
Mhm.
but it took me
Uh-oh.
years and years and years for you to agree to take me to ski. Because
Uh-huh.
when you took Phil to go learn how to ski, it kind of did not go well. So if you can kind of share that story. Um,
Oh yeah. Yeah. So anyway, Phil wanted to go skiing, and I think he might have went before. I'm not 100% sure. I go, do you want lessons, from a professional? He goes, no. I go, all right, well, let's start off on the bunny slope. We're literally like 10 feet from the bottom. He falls and like breaks his shoulder.
Oh
he
my
actually
God.
he
My,
dented the
my
ball in his ball and socket, which
yeah,
takes
my
much
brother Phil
skill.
was actually he was very uncoordinated. Like, do you remember the video from your bar mitzvah when we're doing the limbo? And he's like
Yeah.
falls, and it's the funniest looking fall you've ever seen. Which, by the way, Yoel, at like 20 something, I won the limbo contest over all these little 13-year-old kids.
Really? That's
Yeah.
hilarious. But wait, I
Yeah.
Oh,
want
by
to
the
go
way,
back. So wait, so Phil was how
let me go.
old when he passed away?
He was 28, but hold on one more
20.
second. Ben,
Yeah.
do you remember how I taught you to ski?
I remember that you asked for less. You asked for the good tickets for the slopes, and they were like, "No, we can't do it. No, they never do it. He's never done it before." And you're like, "Nah, he's coordinated." And so I did the bunny slope probably once, and then we went straight up, and we were doing figure eights by the time we started going down. That's what I remember.
Right, but do you remember what I taught you? What I taught you was I'm going to teach you how to stop, because if you could stop, nothing else will get in your way.
Uh-huh. Fair enough.
Okay, sorry, we'll go back to you.
Yeah, I want to go back to that. So when he passed away, what was the, obviously grief, obviously, but I want to sort of get your perspective. Like, what was, how did your parents handle it? How did your mom handle it? How did your dad handle it?
Oh, well, all right. So first of all, I get the call from my stepfather saying that he passed. So of course, I'm immediately in disbelief. I literally saw him on my 30th birthday, which
Mm.
was, I don't know, a couple of months before. I mean, we saw each other an awful lot. He lived in Connecticut. I was living in Manhattan. So I quickly borrowed my friend's car, which happened to be a Porsche, and me and my girlfriend at the time, we drove, right up there. And then it's going to be probably me and Ben first before I get to my parents. But uh, anyway, according to the Jewish religion, you have to stay with the body. So Ben and I stayed overnight in the funeral home. And then,
Do you remember? Do you remember
then,
that part? Do you remember what happened when we stayed there?
well, he didn't come out and say hello.
No, but you
But
you
then,
asked for you asked for some kind of sign or whatever, and the
Uh,
light flickered. Do you remember that?
oh, no,
All right. Anyway,
I believe you.
It's basically us in the middle of the night with our brother in just some cold, creepy room. And
Yeah,
I
with a
think,
wooden box.
yeah, and I think Eli said something like, "Dude, if you're still around, just tell us." And like the light flickered immediately.
huh.
All right, let me get back to my answering the oldest question then.
Yes,
Anyway,
sir.
so hold on. So then we have the funeral, and this is when I was throwing the New Year's Eve party on the Intrepid, like those years,
Mm.
not that day. And because I was holding up pretty, I was trying to hold up good for mom and dad and Ben, and the guys who like ran the Intrepid came to the funeral, uh, and they flew up on a helicopter to come,
Hmm.
Wow.
and that got me all teared up. I mean, that's just like the sweetest thing ever.
Mm.
Because it was what, it was a day before, he died one day, the next day is the funeral, and they
Mm.
literally, Connecticut in helicopter. So that was very touching. I'm going to keep going. So because you asked about, how my mom and dad did, of course,
Mm.
uh, mom was a typical crying mother. My father, of course, was extremely upset, but of course didn't show it too much. He gave a great speech, I don't know, I guess you call it a eulogy. I'm not sure, but then when we get to the actual cemetery, everybody got worse. And you know how you're supposed to put a little bit of dirt on top of the
Yeah.
coffin? So everybody did that. And by the way, he literally there was definitely like a procession of 60 cars at the funeral. That's how many people my brother knew. Okay.
Wow.
And you know, he was only in Connecticut for I don't know 4 or 5 years, 6 years, I don't know. But, well, actually, I guess it's longer. But yeah, that's how many people he knew. But anyway, so everybody's done putting the dirt on, and Ben and I finished the whole thing. Like, I want to take us like an hour or something, Ben.
Maybe.
Yeah, the whole thing. I mean, we literally had calluses on our hands for days, but you know, it's kind of like while you watch the body and you make sure he's buried. So it's kind of like you make sure it was him. It's like you know when they switch a baby at birth, etc. Um, but then, you know, like for instance, my stepfather was there for my mom. Um, and I don't know, it's kind of weird because neither one of my parents, uh, at least in the last 10, 15 years ago, they don't talk to him too much. I always bring him up,
I was about
you
to
know,
ask you that. Did any of them ever bring him up? Yeah.
not really. I mean, you know, if mom was looking for through a picture book and showing somebody, you know, blah, blah, blah. But no, it's very weird because like I always bring up, you know, I still count him as one of my brothers. I know he passed away, but I always
Right.
bring him up. I think it's odd. And then we weren't actually close when we were younger, like, you know, 12, 15, 16. But, you know, once I think I was 18 to 16, we got along all the time. I mean, I used to see him at least twice a month, whether he came down to Manhattan or I went up to Connecticut. So I don't know. It's just weird. I mean, like, for instance, his favorite foods were beef with broccoli without the broccoli, uh,
Yeah.
lamb chop. Yeah,
He did not eat
he liked
vegetables,
lamb.
that's for sure.
On the next
Yeah.
cooking segment, Ben. Yeah.
Yeah.
And his other favorite meals were like lamb chops and chicken parmesan. Um, so whenever his birthday is, which is December 13th, which is funny, it's actually the same day as Ben's son's birthday.
Hmm.
But I
Who's named
always
after
eat
him.
one of the
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't know
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Huh.
So anyway, on his birthday every year, I eat one of his foods. You know, one of his three favorite foods.
Oh, wow.
Um,
That's
I'm not
nice.
even. My parents remembered what his favorite foods are. So
So,
yeah,
He
it's
he also called raisins dead flies, from what I remember. I wasn't that like we weren't that close because I didn't they were much he was 10 years older than me and he didn't live in our house. And Eli and I would also poke fun of him because Eli and I look alike, but he's like 6 foot
the
tall,
mailman,
white, like not tan at all, nerdy, bow-legged, uncoordinated.
curly hair.
So he was like the odd one. So like we call him Philadelphia cream cheese. You know, he was like the butt of the jokes, but like in a loving way, you know, like brothers. You know, don't worry, we would have fights and he would be able to join in physically because that's brothers. But yeah, but when
Wow.
he moved away, I wasn't that close with him because he was just far.
Well, plus you were like 6 years old.
No, yeah, I know, but when I was in college, he was still. It was before college. Yeah, I guess it was high school. Yeah,
I
it happened. It happened the year
wait,
after it was the year after high school for me.
Ben. Um, I was 17 when the divorce happened, and then he moved up, which means you were
5.
what? Yeah, you were 5. You didn't have that much of a chance. I mean, you'd see him like if me and him, because me and my brother Phil come down to visit my mother, or we'd all go to my grandmother's house, like we'd all meet. But you didn't have that much chance to see him. I mean, really,
That's
you
what
were
I'm.
5 years old when you moved out.
That's what I'm saying. I wasn't that
Yeah.
close with him.
Which, by the way, one of the reasons he moved out was uh, mom made him babysit you, and he didn't want to be the babysitter. Just so you know. I don't know if you know that story.
Well, we were told that last week's episode.
Oh,
Hmm.
last week's episode?
But yeah, Dad said
All
that
right.
he really was really excited for me to come, and then it was about 10 minutes, and then he was done.
So Eli, because Ben, I guess, is gonna, take the progression or the wrap up, however you want to do it. But before then, like, so you wanted to come on to the podcast, right? And is there anything like burning? Because I want to make sure that if there's something specific that you wanted to bring up, or because Ben was saying at the intro, you represent many different facets. You're a child, of divorce. You've been divorced yourself, although without children, but that's okay. We'll forgive you. But is there anything like that you would like?
It's so much better.
No, I'm joking.
If I had to keep talking to my, I know.
Yeah, but is there anything like anything that prompted you, or you just wanted to come on and schmooze type of thing, which is cool. I mean, I'm having a blast, but I hope you are too. But is there anything that you would like to mention for our audience or anything like that? Or
anyway, to answer your question, why I kind of want to come on. Well, first of all, I really like what you guys are doing. I think it's great.
Thank you.
I did have some questions. So, like, for instance, still being, divorced dads and everything. Now, I know, like, Ben's situation, I don't know yours, but, like, for instance, when you guys were breaking up or got divorced, was it, and especially with your other guests, is it always the wife's want to get divorced, or is it sometimes the dad's? Because I also think that has a difference, let's say, in how a father might deal differently with his kids or the wife or the whole divorce thing. So that's my first question for you, which then I could probably go further to answer more of your question.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, it seems to be the case that it's more the wives that initiated the divorce process. Also, Ben has looked this up. I think generally the stats hover around 70%. It's women initiating. And also, right, Ben, in terms of the demographic, it's also happening mostly in the 30s and 40s range, which is a lot. And that's a lot of our demographic listeners. And also the demographic, for whatever reason, a lot of these marriages tend to implode, unfortunately. But yeah, it's mostly the case for our guests, virtually everyone so far. Where
there's been some that's not, but yeah, the percentage stands.
Yeah, the percentage, right. Yeah.
Okay. Because, like, in my parents' case, it was my father, not my mother. So that's kind of why I wanted to know that question. Also, another question, follow up. The most of these single dads have more than one child, or they just have one?
I mean, I think most that we've had, the majority have more than one. The majority have more than one.
Yeah.
Okay. Are the majority of your guests religious?
Nope.
No.
Okay.
Do you think, like, in your mom's case, because I think this is something that anybody who's kind of not the initiator has to struggle and to contend with, which is working to sort of let go of that feeling of abandonment or betrayal or hurt or whatever the case is, right? Do you think that your mother really felt that because you said your father initiated it? Do you think that's how it was for your mother? I know you can't answer for her and she's not alive anymore, but do you think that was a big part of how she felt in terms of being on the receiving end, so to speak?
Well, yeah, because but part of the reason was, look, so he left, okay. He was making a lot of money for back then. And we were left with like nothing, and back then I think our mortgage was $400 a month. We were having trouble paying that. Okay. I mean, I was actually helping out the house. Like I've actually lent both my parents money before the age of 17. I mean, I've been working since I've been 11. Actually, that's not true. I've been working since 5th grade, whatever that was. No, I'm sorry. I'm wrong again. Second grade. I had a teacher who used to sell candy like wholesale on the side, like his real job when he wasn't being the Hebrew teacher. And I found that out. I'm like, oh, can I get some? So I buy a case of gum for whatever cheap price it was, and I'd sell it to all the kids in class for a nickel a stick.
Sounds like your nephew.
Yeah. Yeah, we can get to that some other time. Anyway, and I did the same thing when I went to public school. And then when I was 11, it was the first time to get old enough to get a real job. I got 3 paper routes. Okay. Um, then I was like a cook in a restaurant, a dishwasher, a
Hmm.
waiter, a delivery driver, you know.
Wow.
A
But
prize van driver for a radio station.
yeah, but that was an internship that I didn't get paid.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
But yeah, but plus I failed to mention the fact I got a president elected, but we don't even have time for that story. Um, and that's a true story. If it wasn't for me, we would have had a different president. I'm not going to mention who, because it's probably for a different podcast. And it
Wow.
doesn't have to do with answering your questions. But anyway, yes. So mom was
We'll
extremely
get around to if Ben will grace us.
Ben,
Yeah.
hold on. Let me finish answering y'all's question now. So yeah, mom got even more depressed, like I said, because now she had to worry about money issues, and she wasn't working at this time. Her teaching gig I had got her, I guess, was up. Um, so yeah, she didn't have a job. She was raising at that point 3 kids on her own. She wasn't getting, she was getting some kind of support, but it wasn't real alimony. I mean, our aunt Israella used to send my mom $100. I don't remember if it was a week or weekly or monthly, but we really needed that money. I mean, we were struggling to get by. So yeah, she was much more depressed. Meanwhile, my father, no offense, Fred, he get a new car every year. And if we ever saw him, he'd take us out to dinner and buy whatever like we wanted, which is nice. But it doesn't help my at-home living situation. How's this? I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood when we were actually really like middle class, and we didn't have a hot water heater. Okay,
Hmm.
so you'd have to take a shower in like 3 seconds when it might be a little bit warm. Okay, and my father wouldn't get us one. I mean, thank God when I got older, I had girlfriends. I'd shower at their house. But that's extreme for a kid growing up. You know,
Hmm.
I used to have to wear tough skins, which were these jeans made by Sears, okay, which looked like crappy jeans. And then one day, I guess I had some money. I bought my pair of Levi's. I remember the hottest girl in the school said, "Oh, I like your jeans," and I was like, "Cool."
Hmm.
But but no. But the point is, it's kind of different. Like I would think, fathers, and especially got, it was the wife's idea. Are probably going to be much better for their kids, and they're probably going through the same thing where they're abandoned. Especially if you're growing up with and you're religious and you want to have as many kids as possible. I mean, that's kind of what you guys are brought up to. Yeah, that's got to be horrible. Which is why what you guys are doing is such a good thing. I think you should do it more on a national level. Get some, I don't know if I'd get psychiatrists, people that have experience in it on both sides. And by the way, you had asked earlier about all those divorced um, parents my friends had. And by the way, a lot of them, hold on, their parents were remarried, but they were still divorced. You know what I mean? So,
What?
uh,
Oh,
uh,
right.
you know what I'm saying? Like I have one friend's parents when we first met him. She was on her second husband. Then they got divorced, and then she met the third husband, who, they stayed together until she had passed away. Um, but yeah, there was a lot of second marriages for sure. So, but still, they were divorced, and I was always like, and I'll go back to answer the question. I never thought my parents would get divorced, because for the most part, when I was younger, you saw them at dinner. They made you go to school, which I hated. You know,
Hmm.
which Ben, I have a question for you, or just an observation. So Ben
Yeah.
yesterday sent me Eliora a piano recital.
Yeah.
So my question is, number one, does she want to take piano lessons?
Yes.
Like, was it her idea?
Yes.
Okay, hold on. And well, let me tell you my experience, so just so you know, and Yoel doesn't know this, you probably do. So when I was younger, when I was pretty young, I told my parents I wanted to learn to play. Didn't say I wanted piano lessons. I said I wanted to learn to play the sting on the piano. Okay,
Hmm.
so instead of getting me a teacher that would teach me how to play the sting, I just want to learn that one song. They wasted 3 years of my life, and I could really play "Mary Had a Little Lamb" and "London Bridge." to this day. So that's parents not listening to a child who actually, like, I wasn't asking for something crazy. You know what I'm saying? I actually wanted to learn one song. That's it. And you don't have to learn all the notes and all this stuff. Show me the song. I'll memorize the song. I'll play the song. But they didn't listen. So, and my parents, I'm not sure if they're together or not during that time. Could have been a combination. I can't answer that question. But I know I was very little. Her name, I believe, was Mrs. Munson, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. And we got these little stupid trophies. You know, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, back to what you were saying. But then that's why I want to ask about the piano thing, because you have to send it to me yesterday. So I was just curious.
Yep. Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
So my experience was that mom and dad never spoke to each other directly, and I was the messenger. Did you have that same experience?
Well, are you talking about before they split up?
Well, I don't have it before, so I'm just gonna. Well, let's stick to after.
After, no, there was like no conversation. None.
I do remember distinctly, and I have no idea how old I was, of mom driving dad to the train and him like running in between the things as the train is like pulling out, and he jumped between the cars to get on. But I have no idea if they were married, if they were still married. I have no clue. I was old enough to remember it, but there had to be some communication going on for that to happen.
Okay, I know I've seen him do that, and he lived, where we lived for quite some time before he moved to Connecticut. I have absolutely no reason why mom would have done that unless it was broken, or are you sure that was mom? I'm just saying I have.
Yes, I'm 100%. I'm 100% positive.
They like never talked. And I told that story earlier where mom wanted to move to California with the 3 kids, and the judge wouldn't let him. So mom had a lawyer, and I figured out how to trick my father into letting us go to California. Okay. So I told the lawyer my idea. I was in college at the time. So basically, it would just been Ben and my mom who moved to California. Her name was Kathleen Trenner. She did what I said, and the judge would allow her to leave, except at that point, she didn't want to go. Yeah. Well, my father's an odd bird. I mean, how's this? I can see he's a better parent now for my half brother. Okay. Much better than he was for me and Ben. Probably even Phil. So, I mean, but I also, I don't know what he said in the interview as far as the father thing goes. It'd be interesting to see. But I just think he had a totally different experience than what you guys are going through. Because first of all, he had a lot of support. He had my grandmother, grandfather. They had a lot of money. He worked for their company. He also had one of his other companies he started. He got some girlfriends easy. He had no problem buying another house, then a condo, then another house that he owned like the same time, because my grandparents helped him out. But I mean, he had support. And plus, I think he also, he probably kind of felt relieved, And then I actually met somebody before I served her with papers, not on purpose, by accident, which was good because, then I kind of felt abandoned like you guys did, even though she didn't know I knew. You know what I mean? It was like, why is my wife doing this to me? I've gone through some experiences, and also part of, you asked earlier, why I want to be part of this, like, and also it's a 2-part thing. It's kind of like, you said, yeah, I didn't have kids, thank God. But, from my point of view, I've raised a kid. I mean, I raised them. Okay. So number one, I've gone through the experience. Second, my wife and I, well, my ex-wife rather, we were like, well, if we get pregnant, we'll have a kid. If not, not. It wasn't like we had to have one. You know, kind of like everybody in America thinks you need to have a house, married, 4 kids, and a dog. Okay, it's such a fallacy. You don't need to own a house. Okay, you don't need to be married. You don't have to have 4 kids. You should have a dog. But you know what I'm saying? So um, I have experience of this. I mean, I helped. I've even helped my father out when my father and his first, real girlfriend after my mom, they were going through a nasty breakup, and he had a broken leg or a broken foot or something. He had me go with him to the diner to like hammer things out with his ex because she also worked with him. So of course, I guess she wanted money or something, even though they weren't married, blah blah blah. But I see both sides of the coin, but then again, the coin's different. Like I said, depending on what happened. For instance, if the wife left the husband because the husband was having an affair, you, you know, you, the husband kind of brought it on himself. If the wife, and that's kind of why I asked how many kids some of your guests have had, because literally after a wife after a wife has children, a woman, their hormones change. So I mean, chemically in their heads. I mean, it doesn't happen for everybody, but it does for a lot of people. So the person you married might not be the person after a kid or two. So and that could be why some of these women change. I mean, of course, some can be other people. Some can just be upset. They could have I forget what they call PTSD after you have a kid. It's called postpartum depression.
Postpartum.
I mean, right. Yeah. So, I mean, there's lots of reasons. I was always in the impression, you get married once, you're married forever, which is, I'm sure yours and Ben's thoughts. When Ben told me getting a divorce, I'm like, first time, like, I didn't know Orthodox Jews could get divorced. I had no idea. I mean, I know what a get is. My mom got one, but, they weren't Orthodox. So, but yeah, I had no idea that could happen. I mean, that's just like the oddest thing in my mind, But anyway, that's kind of what one of the reasons I want to talk about, because I can see it in, you know, different sides, different views. I mean, I had a really good friend of mine. It's not funny, but I tell a quick story there. So my friend's wife is it was their kid's birthday, and she was gonna be like, I don't know, 1 years old, maybe 2, 3, I don't know. And so I call my friend. He doesn't answer because I want to wish happy birthday. Then, and by the way, my number was blocked at the time. Okay, so then I call his wife because I knew her. We didn't live in the same town, but we were friendly enough. I call her to still wish the kid a happy birthday. She answers the phone on the kid's birthday. She's in LA in a hotel room with a bunch of other girls, and answered a unlisted phone number. And I just had a feeling she's cheating on.
Oh boy.
So I tell my friend. I tell my friend he doesn't believe it. So after 2 months, I go, look, dude, because she was going out apparently to California. They were living in Chicago. They go to California she was going there like every month or two, supposed to get like in vitro or something. I don't know. Anyway, I finally convinced him. Just hired a detective. Well, within 20 minutes of landing, she's meeting some dude at some hotel or something. And anyway, he was crushed, and he ended up, getting divorced. And he could have used these things you were going through. The only good thing is, and I was living in Atlanta at the time, but he happened to come visit, and he got along really good with my girlfriend at the time's friend, and they dated for a while, so that eased the pain, but still not that much. He ended up getting remarried. He got remarried, don't quote me, maybe 6 years ago or so. Great wedding. He's happy with 2 other kids, and he's finally okay. But I gotta tell you, his ex-wife was still taking him to court up to like 3 months ago. His daughter luckily just graduated high school, so he doesn't deal with her anymore. He just has to pay his daughter's education, and he gets along great with the daughter. But the ex-wife is just horrible. I mean, he still kind of goes through this pain that you guys go through like every day, and he has a new wife and new kids. So it's it's a hard thing.
And yeah. How did you feel well, let me ask you a different question, actually.
Okay.
Because you talked a bit about your perspective in terms of, how it was, the finances were tight and whatnot. do you have any sort of perspective? Just you said there's different I don't remember the words you used, but different narratives, there's different perspectives, I think you said. So
Yeah,
do you have any sort of, and it's not to get into the specifics, but do you generally have, perspective from your father's? Like, did you ever speak to your dad about his perspective on things and why he felt that he wanted to leave and why he felt he did what he did or anything like that? Or you never really talked about that?
we didn't talk about let's say that specifically. I can tell you, he was a heck of a lot happier out of that house. I mean, I told you, literally from the first time I saw him, um, after he moved out, like I said, the apartment complex a few blocks away, we got along so much better. Not that we had the best relationship, but we got along better. I mean, Ben thinks me and my father have a bad relationship, which is funny because I literally talk to him like every day. We don't agree on a lot of things. I still always have in my head what things, he did wrong, and I'll tell him. And part of
How
it
do you,
is,
how do you let go of that resentment? Like I'm amazed because you talked about, like, almost in the same breath, you can say that, you felt that you didn't have certain things growing up financially and you guys struggled, but at the same time, you could talk about having a good relationship with him and speaking to him. So are you just generally that type of guy who doesn't, really hold on to that anger or resentment? Like, you don't even feel it? Or is it something that, like, you have to work on and
well,
say, yeah.
for the most part, I leave everything in the past. I mean, there's no reason to, you know, eh, to dwell on anything in the past. However,
Hmm.
there's still things I'll bring up. I mean, I will. Like, for instance, okay, and my parents were married at the time, and at that time, happily, okay, I'm like literally 3, maybe 4 years old. We had a German Shepherd, and they say he's not feeling well. We're going to take him to the vet. I'll be back in an hour. Okay, they put him on a board, and Dad puts him in this, the old station wagon. He comes home without him. And by the way, I'm mad at both my parents for that. They couldn't tell me that they probably had to put him down. They told me
Hmm.
we're just going to go have him fixed and come back. I love that dog. To this day, I bring it up to them. Well, not my mom anymore, but
Let me ask you a question. I'm going to sound like a psychotherapist, but I'm curious. Like, do you feel like,
uh-huh.
because you talked about the passing of your brother, I find anyways, and it's not a judgment thing. And I've been fortunate to not have experienced it. So I don't know what it's like and I don't pretend to know, but sort of like, you don't strike me as overly emotional. Do you feel like there was some of that love or emotion that you didn't get from your parents? Like, like they weren't present for you, like, cause you talked about your high school graduation and then, do you feel that way? Do you feel like, whether it's because of the divorce or maybe just their personalities, that you feel like that was lacking growing up? Like, you didn't have that sort of emotional connection that you could have used as a child growing up? And
oh,
if
I
so,
don't think I got it, but hold
yeah.
on, but I also don't think I could have used it. I mean, I pretty much think I raised myself, and I think I raised my parents. I'm seriously,
Hmm.
and Ben, but no, I mean, like, seriously, I pretty much, I raised my mother. I mean, geez, I was like, what, 6? I got her a job.
Hmm.
I'd help her all around the house and do things. I mean, the reason I'm such a good cook now is my mom used to make these hamburgers, and she squeezed her hands like this. So number one, they're ugly and finger marks in it, but also she liked everything well done.
Wait a
It was
second.
like eating a hockey puck.
Who's a better cook, you or Ben?
He
Uh,
wouldn't know. We don't. We've
You never,
I
but you
don't.
were there. What, Ben, you were just there, weren't you? Or you
yeah,
didn't have
but
a
we don't.
cook off or?
We
I don't.
we
I don't
haven't
have a
been in
kosher
the
house.
we haven't been in the same place to cook in reality.
Right.
Except when I came out to see. I feel like I've come out to see you and Mom, maybe, and was I was manning the grill, but maybe not.
Oh, well, mom's house was kosher, but I don't
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
cooking.
I definitely cooked when I was there when I visited, but again, we have just different styles.
Yeah, I want to ask about that, but just your answer to me was simply like, you don't feel like there was anything lacking there. Like, you don't feel you needed anything more. There was nothing missing or anything like that from your
Well, yeah,
perspective.
I don't think there's anything I needed now.
Right.
I mean, if it was Phil, he would have needed it, but everybody's different.
Right. Oh,
And
that's a
and I
great segue. Like, Ben I've just met you, but I see Ben as being very different than you in so many ways, and you raised him, right? Effectively. You think it's a nature versus like it's a nature and nurture discussion, right? Like, did you
Well,
always
no,
see Ben as being different? Sorry.
no. Well, first of all, nurture and nature, that is 100% correct. That's
Right.
why, um, you know, it's not like you have to have school or this or that and the other thing. I mean, I believe internships are much better than going to college. I mean, I'd rather see a doctor that spent 4 years, okay, working beside another surgeon than someone who spent 12 years in medical school and then
Right.
4 years. It's just stupid,
Right.
in
Right.
my opinion.
Right.
But no,
Right.
the difference between nature and nurture, it's true, but it also depends on who the person is. Because depending on what you can adapt to, and let's say, how smart or unsmart you are, or, how your brain works with your right or left brain, it's all related to, what you're saying.
Right.
So,
Right.
everybody needs like houses. I have people that to this day, still don't like, let's say, talk to their father because of something that happened when they were like a little kid, you know, or they felt abandoned, for example, from the mother for whatever reasons. It still bothers them to this day. They're like 70 years old. You know, that's not me. You know, um,
Right. Like if you were, let's say you were in a situation with like a lot of our guests, right? Where like we were talking about that before, where they were, not the initiators, and a lot of them struggle with I don't want to speak for our guests, but generally, let's speak generally. There are a lot of men or women, who struggle with that. Do you feel like had it been you, you're kind of like you would have been able to let go of that because of the way you just move forward? Or is it not necessarily? I know it's a hypothetical, but I'm curious. I'm trying to like probe how you think.
hold on. It's only a hypothetical because I didn't have children. Okay,
Right.
my wife literally left me
All right.
without telling me.
Right.
Okay,
Right. All right.
because
So
I
how did
thought
that
it
make you
cheated.
feel?
Oh yeah, well, how to make me feel? Oh yeah, I was peed off.
If you were to see her
Seriously.
today, if you were to walk by her on the street today.
Uh, well, she wants to get back together, but that's not happening.
Okay.
Like, seriously.
Why
Anyway,
am I
no,
not surprised?
but the point of the matter is, you know, I like I said, I do know what it's like. Like I said, except for the section of kids, and then you asked
Right.
me like how I got over it or how long or etc. Um, oh yeah, I was well, first I was okay. So I'm pissed. I'm starting my revenge. Okay, literally. I talked to my good friends, for some support.
Oh wow.
Uh,
Okay.
drank
Uh,
drank a little bit more than normal.
Okay, that's not in
Um,
the books, but we'll take it. The drinking
what I'm
part.
saying, I understand. I mean,
No,
you're
I get
asking.
it.
I'm
I'm
trying.
I'm not
Okay.
judging. I'm just joking around. Anyway, yeah. Sorry. Carry on. Yeah.
And then, and then as luck would have it, within a short period of time, I did meet somebody else. And talk about horrible segues, but so I met this other person, which was great. Was with her about a year and a half, and she passed away.
Oh wow. I'm sorry.
Right, like suddenly, like out of the blue.
Wow.
Um, so then it's hold on. So then it's like kind of going through similar thing twice. I mean, she left me, but it's not like she left. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I was living with her at the time. Um, she was supporting me, lucky me. I mean, I had some money, but she had a ton of money. Um, and then, long story short, I lost all my possessions and had nowhere to live.
Oh my gosh. So what
Right.
did you do?
So well, sorry, Fred, but I have to tell the story. So, well, my friend came down and helped me get whatever stuff I could get out of her house before her father uh, just threw everything out. Another long story, but anyway, so I went to go see my father. I believe I was only allowed to stay there for a day or two. Then I went out to see my mom, and my stepfather, and they were very helpful. I think I was here for maybe 3 or 4 weeks. I don't know. In their old people community, there was like a sort of a time frame, and after that, my stepfather was very stickler for rules. You couldn't stay there anymore. So I went back to Atlanta and stayed with a friend, and lucky within a day I got a crap ton of work.
Wow.
So
Work in sales? What type of work?
oh no, then I was doing computer stuff.
Oh, okay.
I do a lot of, or can do a lot of stuff, but anyway. Um, and then I got myself back on my feet. Oh, and by the way, one thing about so when my other gal died and I came up to California, I met with my friend who's actually from Jersey, and we're at this beach kind of bar-y thing, and my friend's trying to pick up this girl, but then the girl tells me she likes me, gives me her number. So now I'm confused. Well, no, listen, I'm confused because she had only passed away maybe 3 weeks ago. Is it
Right.
too late to date? What should I do? I literally called my friends, I called her friends, and they all said you should go out. And we did. We had a good time. It wasn't a great time, but it kind of helps you get back on the horse.
Right.
So anyway, the point is, while maybe I was married once, I'm kind of almost widowed, right? So I've had two women leave me. The only difference is, I think, is not having the children, but I have gone through the raising of a child. You know,
Mm,
um,
mm.
so it's kind of why I want to give a perspective.
Yeah.
Plus, still, like I said, you guys are doing a great job, and there's so many other things you could do with this. Um, you know, pump it up, make it bigger. Do you ever have women on the show, by the way?
Just the right question to ask. I'll let Ben answer that one.
Okay.
Not yet. This is the Too Dad to Quit podcast, and I know you're not a dad, but you raised me. So if you can share like one of your proudest moments when you think back of raising me, and you just think back to it and your face just smiles.
Oh, now I got to be emotional. What do you guys?
Hey, I've been trying for the last hour. Didn't you notice what I was trying to do? It didn't work.
All right. Well, I liked your high school graduation
Okay,
very
cool.
much, very much, very much. Remember we brought our Yorkie with us?
I remember everything about it. Yes.
Okay. Yes.
And the last thing we like to leave our audience with is some sort of advice you would give to, those parents out there that are thinking about getting divorced, or the kid who is the oldest when their parents get divorced. What would you leave those people, or what advice would you give yourself or your parents back when this was going down?
Well, it's kind of like your interview that you guys had with, I think her name was Kim or something. And, she said how communication is really key. Um, and maybe, and part of it's like, even though let's say you communicate enough, but everybody's in their day-to-day thing. Okay, whether you're a working mother or a regular mother or a working father or a day father, but when you're married, you need to make time for each other, um, and take a break from like your daily thing. Like my friend that I told you got remarried, I keep telling him like, and this is he's got two young kids. I go, you got to get a babysitter and go out, because otherwise you're stuck doing what you're doing, and you might not be able to communicate as much as you want. And then let's say at night you're trying to sleep, or at work when you're driving to work, you're thinking, I hate how she did that, or I wish things were this way. But communication is really key. And nowadays, you can communicate on text if you're, too shy to do it in person. So, that's a main thing. And then as far as the kid question, um, I would say 99% of the time, it's not the kid's fault at all. So, it's kind of like when mom and dad said they were getting divorced, and, Phil started crying. I don't know, it's because he needed nourishment, or I don't know, but I was like, it's about time, because I thought it was going to be better for everybody. So, they should not think it's them. And they should also do their own things. And by the way, part of that is not listen to everything a teacher says or anything an adult says. Use your own mind. Okay.
Mm.
I believe I had this conversation with Abiella the other day. But you need to be yourself and your own person. Always ask questions of everyone all the time if you want. It's the only way you learn anything.
And you were a communications major, correct?
Yes, and I have a minor in public relations.
Nice.
However,
Well,
I started off as a business major, by the way. And my first class, they go, ready? They go, the book says 1 is 3. They go, but when you go to work for somebody, they might say 1 is 7. I go, well, why am I going to waste my time learning this crap? And I switched majors. True story.
nice. Well, thank you, bro. This has been
Eli,
very
that was
special.
amazing. I'm so happy you came on. Thank you so much. Really, we literally could have gone on for hours. That was amazing.
And
You can have me back. We have more topics.
Yeah, I would love to. So, we will ask Mr. Ben. He'll make we'll make that decision later. But my vote is in. So it was really great. I really appreciate it.
And this has been the Too Dad to Quit podcast. Thank you for listening. And don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment, and we will see you next week.
This podcast provides a platform for our guests to express their own personal views and opinions. Some or all of these views and opinions may not be shared by Ben and or Yoel.
Thank you for listening to the Too Dad to Quit podcast. Available at toodadtoquit.com. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.